Well, thank you all very much for coming here today to celebrate the soon opening of the 9 Mile Creek Bridge on Highway 169. My name is Scott McBride. I'm the district engineer for MnDOT's Metro District, and it's my honor today to welcome you today to this ribbon cutting. With me today, behind me, are Mayor Jim Hovland from the city of Edina, Mayor Molly Cummings from the city of Hopkins, and City Council Member Brad Wiersum from the city of Minnetonka. They will all be able to speak a little bit later. Yeah, please give them a hand. I would also like to recognize another person here. If I could have Ron Ames stand. Ron is a lion of our industry. Ron Ames is the president of Ames Construction Midwest. And Ron has been around this industry for a long time. Can you give Ron a hand, please? And I would also like to recognize we have some other elected and appointed officials here today. So could we please give our other appointed and elected officials a hand, please? Now, the first thing that I want to do today is acknowledge that we very much appreciate the support and the patience of the motorists and the residents of the cities of Minnetonka, Edina, Hopkins, and St. Louis Park for what they have endured during this project. I think it's fairly safe to say that we have never had a project of this magnitude where we have closed a roadway that serves 90,000 people a day in the metropolitan area. What that allowed us to do, though, is take a project that would have taken 2 to 3 years to construct and do that in one construction season. So that is a tremendous benefit for the region. So with that, it is my pleasure, and I'm very pleased to announce that we will be opening this bridge next Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. So that will include, yep, you can clap for that because that's a big deal. That will include the opening of the 9 Mile Creek Bridge, which is right behind us here, and all lanes of Highway 169 from 62 to 55 to from Highway 62 to Highway 55 will also open at that time. So this project include about 6 miles of repaired bridge, roadway, noise walls, and ramps within that project area. It provides a plan for the future in that the bridge is designed 2 lanes today, but to accommodate potential 3 lanes in the future when that becomes necessary. I would like to provide thank yous for quite a few people that have worked on this project. It does take many hands to do this project. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Ames Construction and the Alliant Engineering team that did this work for us. Thank you. On the MnDOT side of the equation, our area management team and design team led by April Crockett and Andrew Lutaya has been working on this project for literally years to get it ready to go. On the construction side, our team was led by Liz Benjamin and project engineer Kurt Callio. And this event, thank you very much, was put on by our communications team, which is led by Chris Kruger, and certainly I want to thank Dave Eikens, who you see running around here coordinating all of this for us. And the Kimley Horn team has been instrumental in putting this together as well. Now, I want to certainly give special thanks to our local partners here, because you do not close a roadway with 90,000 vehicles per day running across it without some serious impacts to the local transportation system. And we saw that play out over this past 9 months. Our local partners, the cities of Minnetonka, Edina, and Hopkins especially, were tremendously impacted by that. We know that. The city staff worked diligently with us to try to mitigate those impacts worked tirelessly with us to mitigate impacts and really worked on the fly to change things, to change traffic control, and we really appreciate the patience, the hard work of city staff to work with us on that. And I do want to make a special thank you to our law enforcement partners as well. Our state patrol and our local law enforcement were incredible partners in this, because without them, the safety on this project would not have happened as well. So we thank our local law enforcement. And with that, I will stop and introduce our speakers for today. Our first speaker today will be Edina Mayor Jim Hovland. Let's welcome Jim up.
I'm going to kind of go from micro to macro, and I want to talk a little bit about the partnership we had with MnDOT. A lot of computer modeling was done to try to figure out where these 90,000 cars a day were going to go, and we were concerned that some of them were going to head over here into the east of the roadway here on the Parkwood Road in Malibu. And sure enough, we were right, and I've got to give Scott McBride the world of credit, and Andrew Lataya, would you hold your hand up, please, Andrew? We stood one night over on Parkwood Road and watched 6,000 cars go through a single-family neighborhood as they were trying to wend their way through this mess. So I would say if anybody knows anyone at Google Maps or Waze, we'd like their name, because they kept sending them down this way and down 11th Avenue. We took part of that 90,000. Hopkins had an even heavier burden to deal with. Minnetonka, I don't think, not so much. It was the county roads were able to handle it pretty well. You know, when you raise it with Minnetonka, they say, well, what's the problem? But nonetheless, this big neighborhood really worked together to try to solve this problem. Some of our neighbors now, of course, like the idea that we close the road over here at Dover so that nobody can come through. But next Wednesday, when this road opens, we're going to open that as well. And then we'll see how things go. And then we'll make adjustments accordingly on speed and volume. So getting back to MnDOT, I can't thank MnDOT enough for what a wonderful organization they are. Scott and I work together on the Transportation Advisory Board of the Met Council, and I've been privileged to be involved with a lot of different projects with them over the years. As we look at transportation policy, transportation finance, you couldn't ask for a better state-run Department of Transportation than the Minnesota Department of Transportation, in my opinion. We're working in a constrained budgetary world, where they're trying to get the biggest bang they can for the buck. This was some of the low-hanging fruit. Closing this for a year wasn't an easy decision, but it saved tens of millions of dollars for taxpayers and allowed them to maintain systems elsewhere. So I think it was a really wise decision, even though it was painful for a while, and we got everything settled down. On a more macro basis, I would say, you know, from the time of the Roman Empire, no society succeeds without the ability to move people and goods in a free-flow fashion. This is going to help get this reopened again. These arteries, this regional system that we have, U.S. highway, trunk highway systems, are the lifeblood of how we get our commerce done, how we're so successful as a regional economy, how we're one of the best regional economies in the United States. So, Scott and everybody at MnDOT, we thank you so much for being ahead of schedule. And Ames, we thank you for helping us get open a month early. We know there was incentives to do that, but we appreciate you being able to rise to the occasion and get us open a month early so that we can get some of the pressure off our local roads and off of Highway 100 in particular as it runs up through Edina and St. Louis Park. So for all of you, thank you for joining us today. I look forward to the ribbon cutting. I look forward in particular to Wednesday morning when we see a lot of traffic shifting over here and restoring that flow of 90,000 cars a day on this beautiful new section of 169. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Molly Cummings, Mayor of Hopkins, and on behalf of the City Council, Christy Halverson, Katie Campbell, Aaron Kuznia, Jason Gadd, thank you all for being here. It's a really big day for everybody. We're very excited. I'm not sure who's most excited, the 90,000 people who use this roadway, perhaps Scott, our city staff certainly, and perhaps Commissioner Zelli. There are lots of people who are pretty excited to see this happen. While these projects are so complex and cause inconvenience while they're being done, we do thank MnDOT for being so responsive when there were issues, which come up, of course, every day as things shift and the needs change as the project progresses. Ames Construction, again, thank you so much, working closely with city staff coming in ahead of schedule, a month ahead of schedule. That's pretty amazing. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our Public Works Department headed by Steve Stadler and Nate Stanley, who is out here, our city engineer. They were the point men for fielding the calls, the emails, and doing the problem solving, always with patience and perseverance. So Nate, thank you very much, and all of the staff. It's great. Our police department, Captain Craig Kryling, and all the rest of the police department who work diligently to slow traffic, to stop people who are rolling through those stop signs, things like that, and try and keep it as safe as possible. A real special thanks to the residents of Hopkins, especially those in South Hopkins, who got the double whammy of this closure, and of course that happens to be our summer road project. So it's been very challenging, and they've been very patient and have let us know, and we've tried to accommodate as best we can all the challenges that come along, so thank you for that. Again, thank you to the many entities that are involved. We want to really thank our neighbors in Edina and in Minnetonka for sending so many new consumers into Hopkins. So our stores thank you, and all of the extra vitality that we have now, so now that the road's going to open. We hope that those people will continue to shop and eat and dine in Hopkins. But thank you so much to so many partners that made this a reality. We're excited to be here and look forward to cutting that ribbon. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. My favorite boss gave me 2 words of advice. He said, "Brad, be brief." So I intend to do that today. But I do want to say thank you because there are many people to thank. First of all, thank you to Minnetonka residents, to Edina residents, to Hopkins residents for the patience that you've exhibited in this project. This has been a big deal, as you've already heard. It's been inconvenient for a lot of people, and thank you for your patience. Thank you to our neighboring cities who worked collaboratively with Minnetonka, and the 3 cities, Hopkins, Edina, and Minnetonka, worked very well together. And I think that that's not a surprise to anybody who's involved in city government, because our cities work together and intentionally, and we have great collaboration. And I think that this improvement to the West Metro area is huge for all of us. But I think working together to get through the challenges of this project has been a particular high watermark in our working together. And then, of course, to MnDOT, Scott, and Ames Construction, and everybody involved in this project, we can't say thank you enough. I mean, getting this done a month early, doing it in one construction season is tremendous. Now, as we all know, this is an extremely important project. Highway 169 and the beautiful new Causeway will ensure the safety of our motorists in Minnetonka and in our neighboring communities, and frankly, throughout the western suburbs. Highway 169 connects Minnetonka to our neighboring cities and the entire metro area, and it's a U.S. highway, so it has impact statewide and will be a major benefit as we move forward. Obviously, this project will positively impact drivers as they go back and forth to work, and frankly, as they move off some other roads that have been cut throughs and so forth. This will be a big deal and make commutes throughout the western suburbs much easier. So I'm very pleased that we will have an improved 169 that ensures everyone traveling to, from, and through Minnetonka will have a smooth and safe trip. So once again, I want to thank everybody who has suffered cut-through traffic, who has endured longer commutes, who lives in Minnetonka, Edina, and Hopkins, and throughout the western suburbs for the patience they've exhibited. This is an exciting day. I can tell you, as a commuter, I'm extremely excited. I work in South Bloomington and live in Minnetonka, and this will improve my life every day. And so thank you so much. And it's great to have everyone here, and we really appreciate your being here. Thank you again.
I leaned over and told Scott McBride I want to go back up one more time because we have a state senator with us, Paul Anderson. Paul, you want to, wave your hand there. So if all of you folks love the idea of increased transportation funding, see Paul. And thank you, Paul, for being here this morning. And elected officials from Edina, Bob Stewart, Mary Brindle, and other communities as well. Thank you very much. Scott, anything else? Otherwise, we'll cut a ribbon.
Yeah, before we cut the ribbon, we're going to cut a ribbon right behind us here. Before we cut the ribbon, we do actually have time for a couple of questions. If we do want to ask any questions, we'd be happy to answer a few questions. So the question was, the release said the bridge needed to be replaced by 2020. Why was that? The bridge was built in 1975. So age was a factor, and the bridge had deteriorated around the piers. So we didn't need to replace it by 2020. We did accelerate it from 2020 to now for a couple of reasons. One was the deterioration had accelerated a little bit, so we wanted to replace it sooner than 2020. The other reason was we wanted to, we slotted it into this slot between Highway 100 and the 35W project that is starting up construction right now. So we intentionally put it right in this time frame. The question was, this is a $64 million project. What are the cost savings for doing it in 1 year versus 2 to 3? I don't have that number with me right now, but I'm sure somebody out here does, and we can get that to you. So the question was, the relative success we've had in doing this in 1 year instead of 3, is that going to influence us in the future? We actually look at pretty much every major project we have in the Twin Cities and do an analysis like that on every major project already. And the success of this, the answer is yes, it will influence us. But we typically do that type of analysis on every major project anyway. And we've got modeling tools that kind of allow us to look at what traffic does and allow us to make a decision on whether or not it's a good idea in each individual situation.
I know you touched on this in the speech, but what do you say to all those people who typically drive the stretch and haven't been able to here?
So what do we say to the people that haven't been able to drive it for a whole year? Communications is really the second part of the technical piece of that. So we look at technically, does it make sense to do this? Before we actually decide whether or not we're going to do that, we work the communications, the other half of that. So we didn't do that without getting together with all of our local partners and say, this is what the technical information is showing us. We think it could be a good idea to do this. So then we talk to all of our partners and say, this is what we think the impacts of this are. Do you think it's a good idea also? So we really work with our local partners to ask them if they think it's a good idea as well. So we don't make that decision ourselves, so we actually ask the people that are going to be affected by this first before we do it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we don't do this ourselves. We do this with everybody around us and actually the people that are going to be affected by it already. The biggest challenge for this project, clearly for us, was the decision whether or not to close this, and after that decision was made, then at that point, how do we deal with that traffic impact and the communications associated with that? After that, I think if you were to ask the contractors, they probably love the idea of a closed road and being able to construct something that is not under traffic at the time. So that takes one challenge away that we typically have, building something under traffic. That's a challenge we typically face on most projects. So from that standpoint, we eliminated a challenge that we typically have on a project. But simply dealing with the detour of 90,000 cars a day was the biggest challenge we had on this project, I would say. The question is, what all do we still have to do before we open this on Wednesday? I don't have the answer to that, but I'm guessing that we can talk to some of the construction personnel and get that answer for you. So what were the main factors that caused the project to be constructed a month early? I guess I don't know the answer to that either, but let's talk to some of the construction folks after we get done. And with that, I think we'll probably, some of the more detailed questions, we have a lot of people around here that can answer those, and I'm sure they'll be willing to stick around and answer those. And with that, let's go cut the ribbon, and there will be plenty of time for questions after that too.
So we're going to do it right here. We're going to have
Thank you.
Kinley Horn down